intervention I want to talk about is irrigation. As we've seen, many African farms are rain-fed in the sense that their water comes from rainfall, and therefore the yields are dependent on what the gods deliver in terms of rainfall in any particular growing season. A key way to overcome the problems of droughts, reducing yields in bad years, is to use irrigation. And in theory, the idea is that you have enough water stored to provide water to the plants when they need it at critical times of the growing season. In practice, of course, you need to have very good irrigation management to maximize those benefits. So ideally, you need to be monitoring soil moisture, you need to have efficient irrigation, and you don't want to be over-irrigating, which can lead to all sorts of negative side effects, including salinization of the soil and waterlogging, which then affects plant growth negatively. So in the African context, improving existing irrigation schemes and maybe making that irrigation water available to a wider set of farmers, as well as bringing more farmland under new irrigation schemes, is really a critical need. Without that irrigation, it's going to be really hard to get African agriculture to be producing the amount of food that's going to be needed in the future. We've already explored irrigation quite extensively in the section of the course on climate change and water, so I don't want to dig into a lot of detail here, but as you'll remember from that section, you can get good and bad water resource development, and at the same time, associated with that, good and bad irrigation schemes. So the trick really is to make sure that when we do bring in irrigation, it's based on good water resource planning, and we make irrigation as good as possible. We have to recognize that when you're using water for irrigation in the zero-sum game that I mentioned, then you're going to be taking water away from some other use, whether it's the environment or urban areas. But we do need that water for irrigation to increase productivity. In the African context, again, they're sort of a bit like the commercial and the small-scale farmer. There's two types of irrigation we can talk about. The first is large-scale irrigation associated with big infrastructure projects, so building a dam, storing that water, creating a irrigation canal system that takes water to many downstream farmers. And that has pros and cons that we've talked about already. But probably equally important for many African small farmers is this sort of small-scale, off-grid water resource management process where you can have a local water source, whether it's a tube well or a rainwater harvesting system, or a small offtake off a local stream where you store water locally for the dry season for local irrigation. And that can be really, really important for farmers who are disconnected from these formal water resource systems. And then finally, it's really important to say that even if you don't have enough water to irrigate an entire farm, irrigation of a small part of the farm can be really important for on-farm food security. So if a farmer is dependent on local production for their food security, being able to irrigate a portion of their farm where they can have security of production for their own local consumption can then really help with their food security, insecurity problems, and help them to generate enough food to see them through the dry season, or in fact with irrigation to continue farming in the dry season.